Hi, hello, greetings. I'm Todd. This is my first ever YouTube video situated here. So, the reason I'm uploading this video is because a fellow by the name of Ben Burgis, he is a progressive, I guess socialist actually, YouTube commentator. He's also got a PhD in philosophy, and I think he's taught at a few places. I believe Georgia State. I'm not sure if he still teaches there and elsewhere. And he's in this group of kind of YouTube, lefty, progressive, Bernie Sanders, the squad supporting, I guess, political commentators and shows I watch, talking about Majority Report, Young Turks, Secular Talk, Kyle Kalinske being we got the Secular Talk guy. We got Dave Packman. I'm trying to throw out as many names as I can think of. So if anybody's familiar with any of these people, there's kind of a little community there. And Burgess came on the scene a while back with, I believe it was Michael Brooks, who used to be on the Majority Report. Tragically passed away a couple of years ago, and on Michael Brooks' show, he had Burgess on doing little segments on debunking stupid things that usually Republicans, conservatives say, with his profound grasp of logic. And as like Ben Burgess, I could believe that his specialty is logic. He's an author. He's got Give Them an Argument, Logic for the Left, something like that. This is his first book. Another book on cancel culture. Um, well, I think that's all. In any case, I think he's got one coming up on Christopher Hitchens as well. So really good writer. I haven't read his books, but seems like a good writer, good thinker. Enjoy him on YouTube. Oh, and I agree with him politically, and like he says, it's like it's more important to me. He says, like he says about himself, in regard to himself, that people agree with me politically. Religious views, metaphysical views, ultimately aren't going to be as significant. If get me health care, lower rent or whatever, right? So, in any case, the Ben Burgess story. He did a debate with recently, with Nadir Ahmed, a professor of Islam, who did not, I guess, do very well in the debate. I don't want to. I'm not sure how to put it. I don't want to be too disparaging, but if you go into a debate, analytic philosophy, existence of God, people you're kind of expected to debate certain topics, and he just wouldn't engage on the normal topics. And said he had some theory about the Quran I won't go into, but at one point, Nadir said something, I'm paraphrasing here, that I don't want to get into a philosophical discussion. And it's talking about, in reference to the problem of evil, which is usually like one of the central things you would debate in a philosophical debate, over the existence of God. At least I would consider it to be philosophical if I'm debating the guy with a PhD in philosophy, right? Like, in any case, I made a comment, is this the strongest theist you could get? Under one of the YouTube segments, clips of the debate that Ben shared on his channel, on his Give Them an Argument with Ben Burgess channel. Subscribe, it's a good channel. And my comment was to the effect, is this the best theist you can find? Surely there are stronger theists out there to debate. And, because of that comment, after, quoting, the comment about I don't want to get into philosophical discussion. And anyway, to my surprise, Ben responded, lengthy response too, a couple paragraphs. And he asking if I knew anybody, because he'd been looking for an opponent. So he reached out to William Lane Craig, who's like the GOAT, right? Greatest of all time as far as Christian public, debate performances. And it doesn't surprise me that he wouldn't debate Ben Burgess. But he's really letting it be known that he's having trouble finding debate opponents. Plus, he said libertarians too. It's not as easy to find debate opponents as you might think. So anyway, I commented like kind of silly comment about how I knew somebody, a close friend, really referring to myself, who had a master's degree in philosophy and a master's in religion, which is true about myself. But eventually, I sent him an email too, saying it was, identifying myself as Todd Clark, and I would, like to debate you. Here's my background, which I'll tell right now. It's bachelor's and master's from San Diego State in philosophy, and then another master's degree in religion from Claremont School of Theology, which is a pretty cool school. Both the schools are cool, but Claremont in particular was quite an experience. In any case, let me get to the substance here of the exchange. Is I offered to debate him. I told him how the kind of God I would prefer to debate, although I had agreed, if he really wanted, I could debate the type of God that William Lane Craig and most Christians were willing to debate, which I'll get into in a little bit. And he said it sounded like fun. He responded quickly, to my surprise, and asked me about my Twitter account, asked if I had a preference for format, and, or a platform, I should say. And anyway, I responded, and in kind, and I haven't heard back from him. This is like New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, the exchange. So it's kind of been a little while. I don't know if he saw it. I haven't followed up yet, but I thought before I followed up, I'd make a little video. And in this video, for Ben or anybody else who wants to see, this is my first kind of like coming out public YouTube channel video. I'm to go over how I would debate Ben, right? What would be my approach, why it'd be worth debating, and how it would be different than I think most people who would debate, and certainly different than William Lane Craig. And I would say I think I'd provide a tougher argument than William Lane Craig. My rhetoric wouldn't be as good. I couldn't do the philosophy of science stuff, certainly. However, I think I can avoid some certain objections that I think Craig runs into all the time with my approach, which I will get into shortly. Let me say, philosophy of religion isn't like my main thing, when I was in graduate school or in my current pursuits. But I am interested in some kind of adjacent issues, meaning of life, meaning, value, purpose of life kind of work. Particularly, there's a guy at Claremont named John Fisher who's done some good work in that regard that I'm interested in developing further. Also, death. Same Fisher guy has done some work there. And whether or not death is ultimately bad for us, which, believe it or not, is controversial. There's also some work I've done on personal identity that's really important. If life is meaningful, who's it meaningful for? What is our nature? And that's a probably my main topic of interest. If I were to do a PhD program, personal identity, along with a topic that's not as popular in academic philosophy, which would be the afterlife and parapsychology, which I think you need an afterlife if you're going to defend the existence of God. I mean, a very good, powerful God. I mean, not all powerful, all knowing, all good, but I think it's essential. And also, it just we want to, how we're going to view the world, right? It's important. The backdrop of future possibilities shapes the here and now. I think, paraphrasing, I believe William James, some smart guy like that, and it's worth exploring. And I have explored, and I'm going to get into that in just a bit. So this, I'm going to get into why Ben should debate me, and how I would make my case. And first thing I want to talk about really quick is the problems William Lane Craig and other Christians kind of box themselves in for mistakes. William Lane Craig's heirs and other Christians, most Christian debate. Say most even like Islamic, I would guess. I'm not sure about Judaism, but anyway, they want to debate the all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good God that creates the universe out of nothing. Creation ex nihilo. That's what William Lane Craig debates. It's kind of the cornerstone of one of his core arguments on the science arguments, the Kalam cosmological argument. But he runs into problems with it because of the problem of evil, which is probably the number one issue, I would say, for Christian theists anyway, is this amount of evil suffering in the world. And if you are making the universe out of nothing, you have all the power, all the knowledge, you could do it in a way maybe where the evil isn't so rough. The universe wouldn't look so kind of just messy, as what Sean Carroll says in his debate with Craig in 2014. I was looking at today, and I think there's some purchase to that, or quite a bit of purchase to that argument, especially in regards to non-natural evil, as opposed to I'm sorry, change that, natural evil as opposed to non-natural evil, which is human like involved evil, as opposed to natural evil like earthquakes and disease and famine and whatnot. With the non-natural evil, the theist can say free will. It's essential for this endeavor, and I think that's a reasonable enough an argument, at least mitigate significantly. However, the natural evil, the earthquakes, disease, the suffering in the animal kingdom that I'm sure Ben would want to bring up in a debate. I think these are, I think Carol said, why can't God just create a natural world? You got free will, mistakes, but not quite this messy, right? This bad, and I think you really build a really good case along that. Many have. And Craig just steps right into it with this all-powerful, all-knowing God. My move, which isn't, exclusive to me, it's actually an ancient idea. It goes back to the Old Testament. I should do this now. This is exciting to get the Bible out, right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's how Genesis 1:1 is often translated, understood. However, this is the New Revised Standard Version, the official Bible of New Testament scholarship. And you got to use this translation in a lot of journals and stuff. And let me read it to you. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth. What? Say that again. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. I'm sure we're familiar with this. And the difference here is that in the Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, the sentence is not creation, describing a creation ex nihilo, creation out of nothing. It's describing what the footnote here says, story of creation. Out of original chaos, God created an orderly world, assigning a preeminent place to human beings, right? That's the creation myth. The Septuagint, the Greek translation going back was 2nd, 3rd century, maybe not even BC, maybe even before that. Or later than that, I should say. But in any case, that translation is where we get the creation ex nihilo version. That in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Although I don't necessarily, it doesn't have to be interpreted creation ex nihilo, even with that translation. In any case, ancient Hebrew. Also, I should add, anywhere in the ancient Near East, with the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Egyptians, they all had a creation myth that involved dealing with some pre-existing chaos, often in the form of a slain, chaotic monster, chaos monster, like Jordan Peterson so often likes to talk about, like for the Babylonians had in the Epic of Gilgamesh, had Marduk slain the goddess of the deep sea, Tiamat, and they get in a big war, and he bugs out bags of wind and kills her, then chops her up and makes the universe. Isn't that nice? Anyway, Genesis 1 is kind of playing with the Babylonian concept here in certain ways. I'm not going to get into, but it's echoing some of that, improving on it a little bit, arguably. I think probably credibly so. And but it's just formless chaos or whatever. Like you have to order, which means there's physical constraints. Plato's Timaeus is a really nice poetic example of this, where he describes God as noticing this disorder and himself being good, having no jealousy or ill will. He decides to order the chaos, right? And we get life on earth and whatnot. In any case, moving on, that's number one mistake. The all-powerful, all-knowing God that creates universe out of nothing. It's like, well, God's not, he's got to deal with this chaos. Not all powerful, maybe not all knowing, because like there's no future, free will, take free will seriously, you get the whole determinism, predeterminism issue, and then, lack of power, lack of knowledge might compromise God's goodness just a teeny bit, but still really good, right? I'm not gonna like put God down too much in my theology, but anyway, I'm gonna be able to deal with the problem of evil in a way Craig cannot. Basically, number two of the three mistakes Craig and other Christian theists typically make: divine command theory, where the theory of we want to make a moral argument for the existence of God. We all kind of, most of the intuition towards moral realism, that our morals and values and just genuinely like normative, evaluative judgments like are like real and true, and not just like mere opinion, right? Objectively true, like in some sense. And Christians like to do that. Well, you gotta have objective reality. You need God. God grounds it, right? God says it's good. That's why it's good. Boom. Naturalism sucks because you can't ground your values. And there's a big objection to that, the Euthyphro objection, where Socrates is talking to Euthyphro, and out of that dialogue, comes the objection to say, well, wait a second, are God's commands good because they're good, or are they just good because God commands them? And if you say no, they're just good because God commands them, it's like, it seems a little counterintuitive. We want to say, well, yeah, because God does what it's good because it's good, not just it's not just ad hoc, right? There's a real weight behind the goodness, right? It's not just arbitrary. And in any case, that objection, Craig has to deal with, and I don't think he does a great job of dealing with that. I think it's ultimately a pretty strong objection against the divine command theory, if not ultimately decisive. I just think it's totally unnecessary for me as like a Platonic theist, or trying to defend that view. Yeah, good is God is like equivalent, maybe above God in metaphysical hierarchy, whatever. We can just say objective goodness, right? Is something that God has reference to, doesn't create, and then you could use that fact to attack naturalism, which I'll get to in just a bit. And thirdly, the third mistake Craig and other theists make is they ignore the parapsychological evidence for the afterlife. Now, Craig usually just does this like philosophy of mind like stuff. Oh yeah, substance dualism, because intentionality, you can't do that with matter or whatever. And I don't think it's very persuasive. Not that there's nothing to it, but I think you got a powerful argument that, hey, look, from most of what we see here, the consciousness, life, intelligent existence, whatever, you gotta need a body and brain, right? And best way to counter that is like, hey man, what evidence do we have? And there are several lines, but the most important, the ones I would cover in order, I would say, although the first two are real tight. Co-1, not just 1 and 2, maybe 1 and 1A and 1B. We'll talk about mediumship. First and foremost, like Leonore Piper, the GOAT medium of all time, William James, White Crow. William James famously said that all you need is, one white crow to prove that all crows aren't black. Leonore Piper is my white crow, and which she did credible evidence for decades. Although it's a mixed bag in terms of the process and the reliability, because some of her accounts were bust, some people weren't impressed, but she wasn't a cheat. Her trance was real. She was rigorously tested, and anyway, I'd begin with that. Her and others. There's a contemporary case with a chess match with a chess master that I find personally compelling, but this research is really critical because it establishes the existence of apparent existence of people like well after they died, in certain instances, years, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, longer even, and it does so in ways that various ways that I think you could really, really start building a case. However, you need more than just that mediumship. And the second most really powerful case is the evidence for reincarnation, primarily with children, not exclusively though. The Ian Stevenson work that's been carried on by Jim Tucker at the University of Virginia since like the 60s. And again, I was skeptical. Same with the mediumship. You get into the details of it, and it's a lot stronger than people think. I think ultimately can make a case that it's compelling. Third line of theme is the narrative experiences, which too many people put first or even second. It would definitely come third for various reasons, but they're important. And let me just say that show you some sources here. Significant. Very few academic philosophers have delved into this stuff. There's the skeptic Paul Edwards, I believe, in the 90s did a work, and it's an absolute train wreck, to be honest, when dealing with the evidence and arguments. But the three I recommend. My sources here. I'm going to be upfront with Ben, so you want to access these books if you would like. If not, I'm going to use them. Robert Almeter, Georgia State University, Ben. This guy is an epistemology expert. He published some journals, books, I believe, and he had some personal experiences and got into it. Very good research, good thinking, although he doesn't take certain arguments from another kind of paranormal explanation, the super psi. It's like super ESP explains the phenomenon instead of survival. But in any case, very good. Robert Almeter, who my philosophy of religion teacher at San Diego State introduced me to. He taught with him briefly at Georgia State. And that would be J. Angelo Corlett, who's responsible for some of my approach here today. Also, okay, having set him aside, Mr. Almeter, I want to show David Ray Griffin. This is the one of the main process theist from Claremont School of Theology. Unfortunately, he retired long before I attended there. However, his presence is ever felt. This was his book on paranormal evidence for the afterlife. It is fantastic. He takes the alternative paranormal explanation very seriously, makes very interesting arguments, and I think his analysis is ultimately, for me, compelling, although I'd tweak it a bit. And although he's not a philosopher, he's a philosophy of religion guy, and his analysis is fantastic. The other one, Immortal Remains by Stephen Brade, University of Maryland at Baltimore County. Brade is reacts to this book, reacts to Almeter quite a bit, and does some really, really nice analysis. And he's not as convinced. He's more like, I don't know, 60%, maybe 70%. I've heard him say on a good day he's persuaded by the survival evidence. But his analysis of the evidence is top notch. He pulls out all the best material from the Piper case and others. And really, if as a philosopher, if you're going to ever take this material seriously, these are the three I'd recommend, especially these two. And then, pick apart their arguments, get into the research. But unfortunately, if you just copy, most people just dismiss it. But I thought it worth sharing that information because it's significant. Anyway, moving on. I'm just going to answer now quickly do an overview of how I would debate Ben. What I would do is a two-pronged strategy. All right, I would argue that naturalism, materialism, really the principle I'd go after is causal closure of the physical. This view that only physical causes have any effect in the universe, and I would want to come in and talk about non-physical mental causes. I'll talk about values having teleological causes, right? Like even mathematics having not just like existence, which many philosophers, probably majority, agree to, but also having I guess like a meaningful like impact on the physical world, and in a way that but build my argument that these things are true in any case, which a lot of it's I think intuitive, but it's a problem for the purely physicalist, materialist, causal closure form of naturalism, and this is how I would attack it in these various ways. How it's going to cause for consciousness, mathematical logic, and values, and kind of the cornerstone would be the teleological argument for usually for the existence of God, but I'm going to say it'd be for the existence of God, or the second option, which really is kind of inspired by Nagel's work, Mind and Cosmos. Small little book. Just pick it up. It's cheap, used. See? Cheap copy. And Nagel thinks that there'd be, I guess, fewer physicalists or naturalists or materialists if they didn't believe the only options were like naturalism or supernaturalism, naturalism or theism. And so he develops kind of a third way, and he's really looking at the consciousness, both the historical question, how it like arose on Earth through like abiogenesis and evolution and cosmic fine tuning. Although he doesn't get too into cosmic fine tuning, but also the how it's like the constitutive question: can we really account for how consciousness and the conscious experience being wholly constituted just through purely physical factors? And I was looking at a recent poll, I think 2020 poll, academic philosophers, only like 51% are calling themselves physicalists now. So it's not as slam dunk as you might think, even among philosophers. So anyway, Nagel proposes this alternative that's interesting in its own right that I take very seriously in my analysis, which he calls his neo-Aristotelian. I would just call it Platonic atheism, right? And there's actually, I'm going to briefly plug a channel right now. Where'd it go? Here we are. Channel who did a video that was called Atheism, Nihilism, and Platonism, and the thumbnail on it is Atheistic Platonism. The channel is called Majesty of Reason. Title of the video, Atheism, Nihilism, and Platonism. And kind of this video gonna make some similar complaints to Nagel, and it's like, this aren't the only two options, and the atheists give it quite a bit, and they could just, you can do a lot just by embracing some Platonic alternatives. And I think that's true, and so I take that seriously. And really what I'm going to argue, it's a two-pronged strategy. First off, arguing that naturalism, the causal closure version of naturalism, fails. It means either Platonism, neo-Aristotelianism, I'm sticking with Platonism though, the atheistic version is true, or a theistic Platonism version is true. One of those two. And then I'm going to do a separate argument to decide between those two in my analysis. But really, I guess if, it's not clear, I'm backdooring an argument against naturalism for, I guess, a Platonic worldview is really my main argument. And then I'm working in the theism to it. But I could lose the theism debate. And if I get Ben to embrace a robust Platonism, it's like, all right, he's not going to do that, but that, or any viewers, of course. So come clean there. That's kind of my intention, but I do think there's a stronger case, being serious, for theism than atheism in this scenario. But the two-pronged strategy is something, obviously different than what Craig would do, because usually he just dismisses the Platonic possibility, and they usually let them get away with it. Like very few, and it's because it makes I think the robustly Platonic worldview that's like coherent. There's not a lot of people really trying to develop that. They'll adopt certain things, use patchwork, be like, I need world realism, so I'm going to take that. They never usually call it Platonic. They just say it's more realism and leave it at that, or try to justify it in terms of making it come out of evolutionary theory in some way like Sam Harris tries to do, which I don't think is all that convincing, but a lot of literature that tries to do that. In any case, there is, I think a powerful argument to be made against this causal closure version of naturalism, and I can bring in a lot to that, and then icing on cake, I'll argue for theism, which I guess I'm going to save that for another time. But I would lead with like the teleological argument, and kind of following Nagel's lead, saying there's kind of three levels. You got random mutation and natural selection. Is that enough to account for the evolution we see and culminating in human life and consciousness and doing math and whatnot? And from what I've seen, the arguments coming from the yes crowd are like, yes, it can. We think we got it, but I don't see like, oh, it's like overwhelmingly the case, and then here's why, and then spout out in a way where it it really is that strong of a assertion is justified. Again, I'm a layman, and I probably can get buried with this. I hope I do, as I do need more research in this element. But that'll be the starting point, because I do think that's an open question whether or not random mutations and natural selection is enough to account for the evolution of intelligent life. Secondly, the question of abiogenesis, life coming from non-life, that still even tougher, unless I guess conviction like that's the case amongst philosophers and scientists. Although still there's I guess probably a majority, certainly, of like evolutionary biologists probably think they can do it. Though I've never seen any poll. I don't know that. In any case, I think that's a deeper problem than the natural selection random mutation issue. And I will add even more difficult later is where you get into the cosmic fine tuning. That it's these arguments that are based on these findings in contemporary physics of the extremely narrow range of values of these cosmological constants like gravity and whatnot. And the argument is that these constants are so finely tuned that it suggests that some sort of teleological reason, either like intelligent, intervention, or Nagel wants to argue for like a teleological explanation for it. That's really not like due to design, But in any case, this is like the argument Craig, along with his cosmological argument, just bashes, really does well with in his public debates with atheists. I was surprised to actually see it when I started watching Craig's debates, 15, 12 years ago. And I'd be a fool not to use it. I would definitely use it. And I didn't think Ben did a very good job of responding to saying why he didn't agree with that argument in his earlier debate with the Christian fellow. I can't remember his name. Apologies. And so I'll be interested to see how that plays out. In any case, that would be kind of the nail, the anvil, or whatever. I don't know, the head of my argument. And then I would just throw in the aforementioned difficulties with naturalism. On top of all that, in terms of accounting for mathematical realities and truth, and in terms of like normative and evaluative moral realism, and these like intuitions that it's really really important. And it's like you got to start bringing in the Platonism, and if you're going to do that, you might as well go for a coherent worldview. And not just this like patchwork, like Dennett wants to save like free will, but then is willing to let other things go, and it's a Platonic worldview. I think you can make it more, I guess, coherent and sound than the naturalism worldview is going to kind of be the crux of my argument. In any case, and I guess that's about it. I wonder. What else should I bring up here before I sign off? I should say a fundamental starting point assumption of my argument would be that life is like amazing and worth the endeavor, that in spite of all the suffering and bad things that's happened on the planet and will continue to happen in the natural world, and not just humans but animals, and that I think it was worth it. That unless there was a softer way of doing it, and God was like, no, F you. I don't think there's any reason to really think that's the case. And I say yay to it, and it's if Ben disagrees with that, that would if he convinced me that was wrong, or the audience that was wrong, my argument would fall apart. Right? I'm assuming that's good. I'm assuming that a God that will want that to happen and develop would do so because he's good, because he recognizes the value in it in life. And I think that would be interesting to explore. The depth and meaning of life, and in terms of like individually and collective, this project, this human project, and other projects that could be taking place. I read on the internet today like how many galaxies are there. What is it? It's like 100 to 200 million. Then I saw, no, it's 2 trillion galaxies in the observable. So anywhere between 100 billion and 2 trillion galaxies. Forget how many stars and solar systems in each one, but it's a grand project that seems to be ripe with possibilities for life that from the beginning, scientists, the big physicists are like, ooh, looks like somebody's got their fingers on the dial there. I think that's a interesting argument to explore. And in addition to my platonic assault on the causal closure version of naturalism. Everybody wants to be naturalist, I should say. That's why I'm just not just saying naturalism. Like Griffin's like, I'm a naturalist, even though he's arguing for existence of God. I should say process theology, process theism. David Ray Griffin, John Cobb, these guys at Claremont kind of founded this theology, the school of theological thought, which is rooted in process and reality, and other works by Alfred North Whitehead, the great mathematician, philosopher. This is a really, really easy book, light read. No, I'm just kidding. It's probably worse than Hegel's friggin' logic. I don't know. It's bad. Ben, you need to read this. I should say, I should not probably debate you until you read this because it wouldn't be fair. So it's going to be like in that episode of Yellowstone 1923. Spoiler alert, cover your ears if you haven't seen it, the recent episode. This Indian girl beats a nun to death with a bag of Bibles. It'll be similar. Well, no, wait, I hope I don't get my YouTube video banned for saying this. Actually, no, I'll just kind of wave it around. I'm hurt Ben, but it's a good read. And really what I want to do is get Ben to read this and get bogged down and not to read anything else because it'll kind of break his brain, even his logical brain. He's a smart guy. This is really obscure, difficult writing. I read it over the lockdown era when I was out of work and probably wouldn't have if I hadn't had that opportunity. Shorter version, though, this one. Also, what else do I got here? I guess we're pretty good on the books. My sources, I want to be upfront. I am, J. Mackey, The Miracles of Theism. This convinced my philosophy of religion professor, J. Angelo Corlett, whose book I have here too, Heirs of Atheism, anti-Richard Dawkins book. Anyway, this guy convinced Corlett to give up his belief in Christianity. This book, good book, and didn't quite convince me, but I wasn't a Christian, really. I'm not really a Christian. Kind of, but different. I'm the only one who has my beliefs. I'm a church of one. I haven't been in a church in years, and funerals only, maybe a wedding or two. But anyway, really important book. Also, John Hick, a small book. He's got a pretty decent outline of the arguments for the existence of God. He's got bigger books than that. And him and Hick and Griffin, Claremont used to go back and forth in debate because the process theism guys were like telling Hick he's wrong, and Hick's like, no way, man. Like you guys are stupid. And anyway, it's good summary of where I'm headed. Yeah, I'm a kook who believes in parapsychology, so I'm like the worst in it. However, it's I got academic philosophers. This guy, chair the University of Maryland, Baltimore, published in journals and books. Did really nice work on multiple personalities, and not just that. William James, White Crow. You got to look at it. Carl Sagan, also famous quote about the reincarnation cases in the demon hunter world, where he listed that among 3 parapsychological things that might be true. No, he went on to say he didn't think they were true. He's incredible enough for further research is warranted. So the Carl Sagan fans, he was open to it, man. And there's only been more evidence to come out since then. Stronger cases that are more recent. So anyway, that is summary of how I would argue Ben Burgis. Ben, if you're watching, I hope you're interested. I'm happy to have the debate sometime soon, sooner than later, hopefully. And if anybody else wants to debate me or discuss any of this, I'm open. I have a YouTube channel now. I have a video uploaded, and thanks for listening. All right, good night.